In this lesson, we're finally going to write some Vue.js code. Let's first remove all the default files in the components folder. Also remove all the code inside app.vue. We're going to create our first Vue.js component from scratch. Similar to a React component, there are two distinct parts of a Vue component, the script part and the template part. Optionally, there's a style part for your CSS code.
Together, they are called a single file component.
But for now, let's just focus on the script and the template. To use the latest syntax in script, we have to add the setup attribute. We're going to put all the components logic in the script section and put the template code in the template section. First, let's create a state. We're going to import ref and use it to initialize a state. So what exactly is a ref? As you can discern, ref is a Vue.js equivalent of useState. Ref stands for reference. The idea is that a value such as a string is not a reference, but we need a reference object to facilitate reactivity in a Vue component. For example, if we're using this variable as a state, changing it means reassigning it. The problem is that the original value socks would be lost after reassignment. The reactivity is lost as well. Vue's way of getting around this problem is to wrap the value in an object with ref. So our state is technically the ref object, not the string value that it contains. Now to render this ref state, we'll use a double curly braces in the template to create a binding. So whenever product is changed, the h1 will be updated with its new value. If you check the browser, you should see socks. The double curly braces is similar to React's single curly braces with JSX. Technically, you can put any JavaScript expression inside it. Different from React, if you want to access or change a value of the ref in the script section, you have to use the value property on the ref. Let's demonstrate this using a setTimeout callback. The value property is used for both read and write, so it's a Vue.js equivalent of state and setState. In the example here, we're assigning value to a new string to change the state. In the browser, you should see the value changing after the 1 second timeout. But in a template, you don't have to use that value because it will be added for you automatically. Another way to create a state in Vue is to use reactive, but this is intended for object type data. So we just have to import reactive here and initialize it using an object. The main difference here is that you don't have to use the value property to access and change its content in both script and template. To use ref or reactive, it all depends on your need. If you just need a state for a simple value, then ref should be fine. If you have a bunch of related data that usually go together, you might want to put them in the same object using reactive. As I mentioned, using the setup attribute on the script tag means we're using the latest syntax for the component script. This is called the composition API with the script setup syntax. This is basically a simplified syntax for the classic composition API syntax. As you can see, the classic syntax is tedious to read and write. That's why we're using the script setup syntax instead. So from now on, I'm going to refer to the script setup syntax as the composition API syntax. In contrast to composition API, there's the options API. It's yet another way for constructing the component logic. In fact, this is the main syntax that Vue developers have been using for years before the composition API came along. But because the composition API is now the officially recommended syntax, we're going to use that in this course. To explore the evolution of how the script setup syntax became the recommended way to compose Vue components, you can check out the Vue Mastery article on a brief history of Vue's script setup. You can think of the composition API as the Vue.js equivalent of React hooks. And you can think of the Options API as the Vue.js equivalent of React's traditional class-based API. That means using the Composition API, we can create custom hooks, but in the Vue.js world, we call them composables. For demonstration, let's create one right now. This one called use change with delay. We're using the use prefix to name the composable, just like the naming convention of a React hook. We're going to move the set timeout into this function. Set up some parameters. And use the parameters in the code. Finally, we can use our new composable. As you can see, it looks similar to a custom hook in React. We're not going to need this right now, but if you want to learn more about creating composables, you can check out the Coding Better Composables course. So far, we've talked about the various ways to write code in the script section. In the next lesson, we'll shift our focus to the template section. We'll talk about how to render things with conditionals and loops.